Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Mahsa Noor, hypnotherapist and life coach, and I talk about different topics in my YouTube channel. Most probably, many of you know me through that, through my social media. And so today we have Steve here from Robert Monroe's Institute, and he's a trainer at Monroe's Institute. And I need to tell you how I actually found about them. I remember once I was in this meditation group, and there was this young girl talking about her experience, out of body experience. And I really want to have that experience. I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I want to learn about it. I started looking up information. I found a lot of information, like people talking about it, but then I found Robert Monroe's book. I'm a reading person. I like to read. So I read this book, Journeys Out of Body, and I get to learn more. And then I was like, okay, there are more to learn. I had some out of body experiences, but I wanted to find my people, some people who know about this topic, and some people who don't think it's a weird thing because there wasn't that much information. So I found out about Monroe's Institute. And I went actually to one of the Gateway retreat, and I met Steve there. I'm really happy that I did that. It was a great experience. And it was a great experience. Also, great to see many people like you who are fascinated by topics that are not normal, like everyday's topic. So I felt like, oh, for first time, I'm between my people, though I really felt for first time understood and felt really comfortable. So, and I'm happy to meet Steve, who is here today, gave us this time to talk to us about his experience, some stories maybe. So thank you so much. I'm going to give the floor to Steve. I want to talk less and listen more. So thank you so much, Steve, for being here, and thank you for giving us this time. Maybe you want to just introduce yourself to people here.
Hi, Sadie. Yeah, it's great to be here. Welcome, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about the Monroe Institute. I'm very passionate about that. As Sadie shared, that I am a trainer. So, but in my real life, I'll use that in quotation marks. I'm a father of three. I grew up in a state called Delaware, which is the second smallest state in the United States. My kids are all grown now. They're like 30, in their mid 30s. I worked all my life in scientific research. So I worked for a company called DuPont, and I worked in the research part of that. So I have a logical mind, and I believe in scientific process and how things work. And that's why the Monroe Institute appealed to me. But as growing up, I was fascinated by all things paranormal. So if it was something weird, I was very interested in it. And that was kind of the guidepost that led me to Monroe eventually. But I got into a lot of other things. And like Sadie, as a young child, I had a lot of out-of-body experiences. And then I had one in my early 20s that was really compelling. And I didn't know what happened to me, but when I found Bob's books, I did realize that I'd had an classic out-of-body experience, as we call it at Monroe. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm just a curious guy. I like to say I like where science and spirituality meet. That's where that's where my interest lies. Yeah.
I think many of people here are interested. And many of them, hey, teach us out of body, and I was like, I can't. I'm learning. I'm just trying to figure out. But it is something that I think you can find it pieces of information from here and then with some experience talking to some people. So that's why I thought if you came here and talk about your own experience and what you know, that's always like pieces of puzzles that people put together, hopefully to find that meaning. So one thing I want to ask you is, have you personally met Bob Monroe? Because some
Oh,
people are his fan. Yeah.
yeah, really. I first met Bob Monroe. I went to Monroe in 1991. So Bob was still alive. So I did get to meet him in person while he was still in the flesh. And then I went back in 92. So I got to meet him in person 2 times. But an interesting thing happened in 1991 after I left the Gateway course, which we'll talk a little bit about today. I went home, and they always say to you, the Gateway doesn't end when the week is over. It continues. It continues for months afterwards. And I started having dreams. And in these dreams, Bob was a teacher in a classroom, and I was sitting at a little desk. And I knew there were other people in the classroom with me, but I couldn't see them. But I, 3 times a week for months, I would be in these classrooms with Bob. He'd have these classic chalkboards, and he'd be up there writing on the chalkboards and lecturing. And I was learning from him. And that went on. And it was a fascinating experience to have Bob in my dreams like that. And to this day, I think the people that I couldn't see in the classroom back then in 1991 are the trainers that I'm training with now. It's a heady statement, but that's what I believe was going on. So that was early on meeting Bob. And I go back to Monroe a lot as a trainer, and we always come a day early, and I'll sit inside of Bob's house. They converted Bob's house that he lived in into a second facility for Monroe. We call it the Nancy Penn Center, which was Bob Monroe's wife. And I would be in there, and I would stay in his bedroom. And sometimes I would smell cigarette smoke. Bob was a smoker. And I would smell cigarette smoke while I was in there all by myself. I knew there was nobody else in the building with me. And I found myself talking like Bob was there, like I was talking to him like he was present. I never got a response, of course, but I still had that experience. I still feel like I meet him every once in a while. I'm thinking of just before Christmas last year. Gosh, I can't believe it's already 26. But last year, I had a dream where Bob lucidly came to me, and we were working together on a formula for something that we call the reball. It's a tool that we use at Monroe. And he loved to put things into math and make formulas for things. And the thing that got me in that dream was that Bob's enthusiasm. He's a very enthusiastic guy. You see him on YouTube or something like that. He's pretty steady on and not real emotional. But he was really emotional and excited about what we were doing. So I had this new epiphany about Bob's excitement and the things that he did. And I'll tell you something else about Bob. When he does something, he does it 100%. But then when he loses interest in it, he moves on to the next thing. That's just Bob, the way he is.
That's so interesting. So, I kind of like learned that about him when I was in the gateway with you. I was trying to figure out what kind of person he was, because that's too much work to do, to
Yeah.
create this by your own, trying, and specifically in that time. And still, as I'm telling you, I'm very cautious about what I'm talking about on my YouTube channel, because I don't want to be labeled. While I had the experience, I need to be careful the way I talk about it. But then I was like, who are these people? How brave they were to come and say, this is what I'm experiencing, and I'm not crazy. And recently, I think now people are more familiar. Now they understand it's not something made up, and there are researches about it. But when he started, he was one of the people who started this. So that need a lot of courage, I think. And that's why that tells me a lot about him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great thing that he started. The reason it appealed to me was, I wasn't looking for a spiritual leader. I was into the science and everything. But when I found out about Bob, his determination to prove it to the scientific community that the out-of-body experience was real, that's why I loved the Monroe Institute. And all they said at Monroe was, we want you to believe one thing, and that is that you are more than your physical body. And the rest of it, we want you to go out there and find out for yourself. And I've found out a lot of things. And my current belief system is a product of many years of a lot of changes, taking on new beliefs and discarding old beliefs, and also accumulating a lot of knowings. And that's where your experiential things happen. When you experience something for yourself, it becomes a knowing. You read something in a book, you can believe it, especially if the author is very convincing. But only in experiencing it for yourself does it become a true knowing.
That's true. So it's interesting, because once when I was talking about my interest in out of body, some people who are not really interested, I was like, why do you want to do that? And I was like, to know you are more than your physical, to know. I mean, like, we already know we have. So how do you know? I mean, like, we hope, but you need to get out to see. So that was my understanding. And it's interesting because what you say is, make sure that to know that you're more than a physical body. Many of my audience are Persian, but it's interesting because that's the thing we're looking for. Because I remember I said that in Persian, the translation. Well, I haven't heard this that that's the reason Bob wanted to do that. Other people, and I was like, I just want to know I'm more than this. And it changed your philosophy, changed your life because you can think of life the same way. So I'm really glad you're here so we can talk more about this. Tell me a little bit about how did you become a trainer at Monroe? That's also a question some people might have.
Well, it's an interesting path, and it's no guarantee from the person who desires to be a trainer. And ultimately, Monroe picks their trainers. So a lot of it's about going to Monroe and getting your face known, who you are. But there is a process in which you take a outreach trainer program. They call it OTP as an acronym. And you go into that process, and that takes about a year and a half. And you go and you study and learn all things about Monroe, about the history of Monroe, who Bob was, and the technology and how it works. And then you do a week-long course where you practice training to a small group of people. Of course, these are people that are in the OTP, so they all want to be trainers. So it's a high training environment for becoming a trainer. And then you're allowed to teach a weekend course, and you're supposed to do that for like a year before they even consider you to become a trainer. So really, it's a long path to become a trainer. And as I said, right in the beginning, they say there's no guarantee that you'll be a residential trainer. So there is a process, and it's extensive, and I just feel blessed that I got picked to do it. That they came to me and asked me, and I was flabbergasted at first. I'm like, what, you want me? I've never written a book. There's nothing special about me. And he just said, Steve, we feel like you're the right person for the job. And now I realize that it's not about knowledge. It's about being in service to people and opening up your heart to just be a witness to a person's experiences that they have in the Monroe processes, like the Gateway.
I really want to tell you, I think I told you already, when I met you at Gateway Retreat, I learned apart from what we learned, I learned something that can help me as someone who teaches, to be so patient and be so understanding. I kind of like want to fix people always as like, oh, this is your problem. Let me tell you how to fix it. So sometimes people are not ready. And then I was like, hey, I'm kind of like, you came to me, you wanted help. So I'm going to give you this help. It's direct. But then I realized some people need more time. They just want to be understood, even if they're wrong. And then when I met you and saw how you're teaching, sometimes I got frustrated by people talking and saying things that didn't make sense to me. And then I was like, oh, why, how patient he is. And I felt like you were understanding everyone in wherever they are. So that was a learning for me to understand that if you want to be a trainer, a teacher, you need to understand people and meet them at where they are, not try to drag them where you are by force. So that's what I learned from you. So I see that quality, to be honest, in you. And as I said, apart from what I learned on the retreat, I also learned this from you. So thank you, by the way. So I'm trying. I don't say that I'm doing it. I'm just trying to do what you're doing. So I also want you to tell some of the people here and now they're writing in the chat, hey, can you tell me what was the book name? So I'm sure some of them are not really familiar that much because many of people here, as you know, Persian community, some of them already know, many of them already know, but some of them maybe don't. So if you can tell us a little bit about Monroe's Institute, about Monroe himself. So give us some information for those maybe who are just interested to understand more and learn more.
Yeah, I think talking about Bob would be best because he was a person that, Monroe is not the only thing he did. In his early years, he was into theater in college, and he had really good engineering capabilities, and he had good musical abilities. So those three attributes allowed him to become who he was, to really make the Monroe science, the technology work. But in the meantime, after college, he became a publisher, and he published in magazines. and he would do radio programs. So back in the 20s and 30s, well, actually the 30s and 40s, most media was in on over the radio. So at some point in his career, he had he had 7 different radio programs he was doing a week, and he would produce them, and he would build the sets, he would write the scripts, he would make the music for these things, and he even made the cover of Look magazine as producer of the year, of the century, because he did everything. He was a jack of all trades, and he would have 5 daily programs and 2 weekly programs. So he had 7 full programs going. And then when World War II came and America got involved, he joined the Army and he started publishing articles about, he was really, really into flying. So he really got into the Air Force side of the war effort. And back then, a lot of pilots were being shot out of the sky because the Americans decided to bomb during the daytime instead of the nighttime. So they became targets, and the need for pilots was great. Him and another engineer designed the first flight simulators so that pilots could learn on the ground instead of having a plane to fly, because all the planes were being used for the war effort. So he had a lot of connections to the military and appreciation from the military. So after the war, Bob went into continued his radio career, but then when TV came out, he didn't want to go there. They asked him to go to Hollywood. He was working in New York at the time. They actually worked on Broadway. They were the Rockefeller Center. He would do these radio programs on stage with actors, and they had the whole spiel, and worked with a lot of famous people. But he didn't want to do that, so he decided to start doing research into sleep learning. And what his idea was that you could put a book under your pillow, and then when you wake up and the book kind of idea. But he thought you could play an audio version of the book while you slept, and then you would take in the knowledge that way. He never really had success with that, but that led him into the Monroe sound science, which using binaural beats and different frequencies and sounds, that's the technology that we use today at Monroe. So Bob, his career led him to this whole thing. And for those of you that don't know, Bob had started having spontaneous out-of-body experiences when he was 50 in 1958. So he was in his late 40s at the time. And he was just regular guy. He was a businessman. He thought he was going crazy. He would go see psychologists, and they said, we test you, there's nothing wrong with you. But he kept having these out-of-body experiences. So he just finally came to terms with it and realized that he was being shown or guided into all these experiences to help him understand the astral planes, as a common way of saying it, the realms beyond physical reality. And he wrote books on it. Those are what his 3 books are about, or his adventures and his guided adventures. He found out that everything that was happening to him was being guided. So one of the main themes at Monroe is that we want to assure everybody that we all have guides with us, people or beings that are with us all the time and are helping us all the time in our lives. And just they're always cheering for us, is the way I like to say it.
Well, I had a really great experience when I was in a Gateway retreat. I remember, I think I told you, I had a out-of-body experience where I met my guide. So I was like, he's not going to show up again. That's it. That was the end. So because many times I called and there was no I felt like they are listening to me, but I didn't feel that they're going to show up again. But then I remember when we were gathering before going to the meditation and the retreat, you called, you say, hey, wait, let's call your guides to come here. And I felt this energy came through the room, and then I felt it's just there were a lot of presence, like I don't know how to describe it, but I was like, oh, good, people's guides are coming, mine is not coming, and then mine, I felt it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna show up for you anytime you need, and that was. I'm gonna cry if I talk about it. So I was And I felt like they respected you and they came for you. And I was like, okay, that's good. So yeah, I do agree. And I did met or saw once my guide, and I really wasn't a believer in past, like few, maybe 5 years ago, if you talk to me, I was like, what are you talking about? But today, yeah, I'm here. And just guys, something, because some people are like, hey, tell me the book name again. I'm gonna, after this, I'm gonna send you the names of book. I'm gonna send you the program name, everything. And also, if you let us, when we finish, we can get some questions. You can ask your, so you don't need to type the questions here. If we have some time, Steve is gonna take some questions. So be patient a little bit. So yeah. So you told us about Monroe. Can you tell us about the program? I mean, like, I know about program, but some people are like, how can we sign up? So tell us about Gateway, because you're training Gateway, right?
Yes, I do that. That's one of several programs that I train. But I want to bring us back real quickly to the guidance and let everybody know that
Sure.
one of the biggest trip ups coming into a gateway program is you want to meet your guides. But it's not like that. When your guides talk to you, it's usually coming, it's like that gut feeling you have about something, or, it's just an intuition. Very rarely, as Sadie said, she met her guides, but if you drill down into it, she probably just knew that they were there, that they were present. It's not like like we're seeing each other on this Zoom screen right now, or you meet or talk to somebody in person. It's very rarely like that. So I just wanted everybody to know that if you're seeking to meet your guide after this conversation, or if you just always wanted to, be very open, keep your spectrum broad on how you perceive or expect to perceive your guidance, because your guides come in many forms, and it's very rarely do I see my guides. Okay, I'd want to get that
Yeah, yeah. Thank you
get
so
that
much.
out
Thank
there,
you.
because
Thank
that's
you.
we have a program called Guidelines, and everybody comes in and trips over that for the first couple of days, because they expect to meet somebody like they meet a person. It's rarely like that.
Yeah, I know.
But you're
Okay.
asking about the Gateway program. Now, the
Yes.
Gateway program is the flagship beginner program for Monroe. And I always use that word loosely because the Gateway program is very powerful. It's over 50 years old. And we haven't really changed it at all because it works. It works really well. And it's one of my favorite courses to teach. So it's an introduction to consciousness exploration. And we teach you several tools that teaches you how to relax and how to quiet your mind and how to set your intentions. And those are the tools that we teach you to help you explore your consciousness. So it's not like meditation. We are giving you guidance, giving you tasks to do in a very deep state of relaxation so that your consciousness can be set free from the physical body. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And we are going to remember that statement, you are more than your physical body. Well, that means that this body, this physical temporary body, is just something that we're occupying for this life's experiences. But we're not bound to it 100%. We can leave our bodies and go somewhere else or perceive something in a different realm of existence. And we can meet with other intelligences besides the people that we know. And the Gateway, then after we teach you the tools of how to become very relaxed, then we start introducing you to what we call focus levels. And the focus levels take you further and further, or expand you further and further outward. So we start by the very deep state of relaxation is what we call focus 10. And we call that mind awake, body asleep, or body very relaxed. So in that state, you can actually hear yourself snoring while your mind is sparklingly clear awake. So it can be a weird experience when you first start entering that focus 10 state. And this is the baseline. If you can't get there, it's hard to go to the rest of the places. It's kind of like math. Like Sadie heard me say this. It's kind of like addition and subtraction in mathematics. If you don't learn that, you can't do division, you can't do multiplication, and then geometry and trig and calculus. No way, right? You got to learn the basics. You got to get there, and that's that foundational launch pad that can allow you to go further and further out. So after we teach focus 10, the next one is focus 12. And that was what we call expanded awareness. So now from this very deeply relaxed state, we learn to expand our consciousness outward into other non-physical realms to access information. Some people call it the Akashic record, maybe your guides, things like that. So information starts to come in, and we teach wonderful tools about how to use that in awakening consciousness to instantly access information. So it's a really cool place, that Focus 12. And then the next level we go explore is Focus 15, and we call that a place of no time. So we're starting to move beyond time and space. And the first attribute of this realm that we live in that drops is our awareness or our connection to time. So Focus 15 is a place of no time. In Focus 15, you have the ability, because there is no time, to explore your life, go back into your childhood to explore things that have happened to you there, or even go into your future and see where you're heading. And we actually teach how to go back and help yourself in your in your childhood and times of need. Sometimes people have experiences where there's this angel that comes to them and helps them in a moment when they really needed help in their childhood. And that is often us coming from the future back to help ourselves. And so you can change the present by going into the past in Focus 15. Excuse me. Now, Sadie, we talked about this, but we believe in reincarnation, that we live many lives. So you can explore that too. So you can go back into past lives or into future lives. And there's two trajectories of the reincarnation. One is the bloodlines, right? Your father, your mother, and their families. And then the other is your reincarnational lines. So you could have been all these different things in the past that you can access today to help you in your life now.
That's true.
It's interesting
what you said about Focus 15. First of all, I really like that Bob was. He liked to label name things, so it's gonna make it easy. Well, almost most people here, they do meditation, so they go through those levels without knowing where they are. So sometimes they're telling me like, "Oh, I can't go deep. I used to go like so it was so great, but now I'm just here." So when you learn about those levels, like Focus 10, Focus 15, that kind of like tells you where you are at. And it's with practice you learn, oh, I'm not there yet, so you're just waiting patiently together. So it was interesting for me to learn about that. It's just added to what I was doing when talking about those focus levels. It was really, really helpful to me. And what do you say about you from future helping yourself in the past? You know what, when you're talking, sometimes I got this information I needed without like before asking you. I remember once I told some of these people here, some people know about this. I was like, oh, in one of my hypnotherapy session with my mentor, I went back to my childhood just to, it was inner child work. So he told me to go and be out of the body, don't go there, and just see, observe yourself as a child when you had that experience. And then I saw myself outside of our home and looking in the sky, and I was like sending love and say, hey, you're not alone, you're loved, and I'm taking care of you, don't worry, it's gonna be all right, I promise you. And then after that session, came back and remembered, when I was in that age for many years, for 5, 6 years, I used to go sit out and look at the sky, and even sometimes telling people somebody is talking to me, like I'm talking to somebody. And I remember even when I met my husband, I told him, I was like, sometimes I'd look at the sky. He was like, you mean God? I was like, no, 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 not God. I wasn't a religious person. I was like, I don't know. I feel like while I'm talking, that person is, or it was like he or she is listening. So then when I saw that, I was like, is that possible? That I went back now I went back to my childhood. So, and then when I was a child, I actually experienced feeling that support and love from myself in future. So now you said this, oh my God, yeah, yeah. Anyway.
It,
Okay.
remember Sadie said the gateway meets you where you are. So we apologize if these sound a little fantastic, but fantastic things do happen at Monroe. And I've been a very honored witness to a lot of things that sounds crazy, but when you really understand it, it's possible. It can happen.
Yeah, normal is boring, But you remember what I told you when I left Monroe? I told you, I think I told you and RK, I was like, I'm going to be weird. I'm not going to be normal anymore because I was holding on a lot of things that I knew and I experienced. And I was like, don't talk about that. Then that's, you can't prove this. You can't prove that. But then one of the things that I took with me was like, I'm going to speak about what I experienced and I don't care who think what, because that's what I'm experiencing. And I feel so much myself now, even better. Like I used to, I'm a person on social media talking all the time, but I honestly holding those information was like I'm trying to hide something, a part of myself. But then I made a decision there when I saw all those great people and see everyone is comfortable with what they're experiencing, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be weird. So that was my take from the experience. And if you can share with, because some people are writing in chat, like they want to know more about maybe out of body. If you can just discuss a little bit about out of body experience, or
Mm.
anything else you want to add to this.
Yeah, the classic out of body. I'd like to, after I talk about out of body, come back to the last focus level that we explore in
Sure.
the gateway. But just to be complete, out of body is a tricky subject. We believe at Monroe that we leave our bodies every night. We just don't remember it. So when you go into delta sleep, and if you look at a EEG of your brain, it's almost flatline. Of course, we believe that that's when you leave your body, and we've had people who have left their body hooked up to an EEG, and it does. It literally goes down to almost flat on all the different levels of measurement. So we believe that happens every night. And out of body, we do it all the time, and we do all the things that we teach at Monroe outside the program. All these focus levels that we're talking about, like 10 and 12 and 15, any meditators, any masters of meditation, and also yogis and people like that, they go to similar places. We just call it Focus 10, but they have a name for that spot also. And I think they're resonant frequencies of consciousness where we acquire new abilities, like I've described for 12 and 15. So these are not unique things to Monroe. These are places that we all go. And the first step of that process is to leave your body and go into some other place. So don't think that the Monroe is unique to this. We just have our own language for these things. So the out-of-body experience, the classic out-of-body, is where you feel yourself leaving your physical body and you're able to turn around and look back at yourself. That's the classic out-of-body. And I may have had 7 of those consciously in my life. So I am no adept at the ability to mist out of the top of my head and go to places. But I have had that experience. I know what it is. But once you have that experience, then you know you're more than your physical body. And the exploration of your bedroom or your house or your city or your state or your country or even off planet, it gets pretty boring pretty quick. You could go there yourself in your physical body and do these things. So the real goal of this is what other people call astral travel, and that's what we call leaving this realm, and we call this locale 1, and we move into locale 2 and other places. So how am I tying this all together? So the out-of-body experience can really be, in later years, Bob determined that he was never really just leaving his body. He was just phasing into other realities. And the amazing thing that I've learned and that Bob has taught all along is that we are multidimensional beings, part of the creation, and that we are omnipresent. So we are everywhere, and we have access to all information at any time. It's just where we tune our awareness, that's where we are. Maybe we could do a little meditation, and I'll drive that point home if we want to. But the idea is that we are everywhere and every when, and we have access to all information. It's just we have to learn how to go get it, how to go find it. And that's even bad language, because we're already there. We don't have to go there. We don't have to go get it. We're already there. We just need to have the right awareness to bring it in. So out of body is a huge spectrum of awareness, and it's all the fact that we are everywhere at once. So it's just where we tune our attention to get there.
Do you want to do meditation now or at the end of the session?
But we could talk a little more and then do the meditation.
Yeah.
I don't have.
Yeah.
We started at 1, right? Well, we started at 10, right? So we still have plenty of time.
Okay.
Let's
great.
keep talking for a little bit, because I see some people.
Yeah, they're asking about your experience, any experience. They want stories and or any, I don't know, interesting stories about out of body experiences, like places to go. If
good.
there's anything you want.
One of the things that happens at Monroe is we heal. Healing is necessary in order to handle more energy coming through. And believe me, if you have your first out of body, you'll realize that there's a lot of energy involved. A lot of people feel a lot of vibration before they go out, and there's a lot of energy. Like, it just feels like you're going to explode, like you're really expanding and incredibly. Some people can call this a Kundalini experience or something like that too. So you have to heal to handle that kind of energy. So a lot of healings happen. Let's see. I have a good story about healing. When I was throughout my life, I've had a fear of talking in public, to the point where if I was talking, I knew it was just a matter of time before I would choke up and I would literally have to leave the room. And it was, I don't know what it was. It was physical. I couldn't control it. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know why it was happening. So when I was at the Gateway in 1991, I had an experience where I was in a cavern. I loved to go into caves when I was a little kid, And I was always that kid that ran away when we were out in the zoo or something. My parents would go find me riding the giant tortoises or something. I was always running away. So in this dream or this experience, I was doing the same thing. I had left my family in this cave, and I was going through the cave, and there was a hole in the ground, and it had a fence around it. And I went up to the fence, and I was a little child in this experience. And I looked over the fence around this hole, and I saw this big blue stone in the bottom. And I wanted that stone. So I climbed that fence just like I always do, I went down into the bottom of that pit. I climbed down the rock wall, and it got to the bottom of that pit, and there's that blue stone. But it was the size of a football, and I couldn't hold that and climb back out of the hole. So all of a sudden, this inspiration came to me to swallow the stone. And I distended my jaw like a snake and swallowed this blue stone. It's just, you wouldn't even think that, right? You couldn't figure that out, but I just knew to do that. And I did that, and I crawled back out of the hole and went back to the experience ended. And back then, I knew nothing about chakras. And if those of you that don't know about chakras, the throat chakra is a blue color. And after swallowing that stone, I could speak in public. I never had that problem again. Never say never, right? But it just stopped happening. So I had that healing, and I didn't really know what caused it, where it came from. But in that experience, I had that healing that I don't have that problem anymore. So I can talk now and don't have any problem. And Sadie can attest to that, right, from being at the Gateway with me.
That's true.
So that was an amazing healing. And it was a simple thing. And and you couldn't think that up, right? You just couldn't, You know, it was guided. So something took me back to that childhood experience in the cave that didn't really happen, but that was my experience. So that's a good one.
That's a gift. Some people are natural, like they talk and they don't understand how a big deal it is for some people. And because as an hypnotherapist, I have clients coming to me for fear of public speaking, and they're very successful people, many of them. And like you expect them to be comfortable because hey, you're teaching that big university, you should be like very comfortable. But then it's something holding on, and as you say, sometimes it's a physical experience actually to them. They start like they can't just talk, they stop and they say freak out, and then it's a big deal, so they translate it in different I don't know, spiritual ways. Some say that's chakras, and then some people say in hypnotherapy, they say like that's a waist that you hold, and you need to speak up your truth. But if that is open, you can tell your truth, and people understand you. So people who talk naturally and people understand them and get the connection and feel what they say, usually are the people that have that is open up somewhat somehow. So it's interesting because, as you know, and you actually talked about this to me, we see things and our brain translate or interpret it in different ways. But sometimes it is not. It wasn't maybe a stone, but it was that your brain
Mm-hmm.
translated that way. That's so incredible. So
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we're born with three fears. The first one is bright lights. The second one is loud noises. And the third one is the fear of falling. So when we're born, what's the first thing that happens? You know, bright lights and the doctor slaps you on the butt to make you cry. So, but all the other fears are learned, and we learn them from experiences, and many of them get embedded in the history of our existence, and we forget why we have a fear. So you get down to the root of that fear. That's the true healing when you really understand where it happened. So, Sadie, you want me to go really off the charts on great
yes, of course.
experiences? So this swallowing this blue stone. Later on, after the gateway, I had an experience. It was an experience. I'll just say that it's a very powerful experience. I think an experience can be measured by the emotional impact, and it doesn't matter how much time goes by. And when you tell the story again, the emotions arise. And this was the root. This was where this talking problem came from, and it wasn't in this lifetime, and it was way back in the past, before our prehistory, we'll call it, in the civilizations before the ones that we understand. And if you've heard Atlantis or something like that, this is an experience from that time. And there were two factions in this society, and one was all about spirituality and loving the earth and being good tenants of the planet. And we were called the children of the law of one. And the other faction was more industrial, more about service to self. And I won't say the name of that faction in this meeting. I don't believe it to be said out loud. So these two factions were at odds. And we are people of the children of one. I was a priest in that order. And my high priest had said that the cetaceans, the whales and dolphins, that species, had created a gift for humanity for our troubled times. And that gift was to be given to us. And we went out at night in a secretive way, and we went down to the shore, and a whale had beached itself. And we were to take this gift from the whale. and I had this blade, and I cut the whale open. I still remember this blade it was like on a pole, like 10 feet long, and I held this pole, and I cut the whale open. And the whale skin parted, the blade never really touched it, and there was just this blue flame around it, this blue sparkling sound too. I could still smell the flesh. It's very prominent even to this day. And we cut the whale open, we parted it, and it had gifted humanity this black pearl. And it was like 6 feet long and 4 feet high. It was like a giant stone. And when you looked into the surface of it, you felt like you were just falling into infinity. And the gift of that stone was that anybody that touched that stone could not tell a lie. They could only tell the truth. And that was the gift that humanity needed at the time, because there was so much disinformation, so much lie, so many lies, and so many conflicts of interest, and so much disinformation, I guess is a word. We're kind of experiencing that today. And we've extracted this pearl, and I was told to not touch it. And I stepped to the side and let the high priest take this stone, but we got caught. And they sacrificed our high priest. They took that stone and put it where it would never be seen. And I was spared, but I was spared in a way that was very torturous, because they would put crystal implants in my throat and in my mind and in my senses so that I couldn't communicate any of this story. So that was, to me, this ultimate source of why I would choke when I would talk today. So
that was incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
That's one of the past life experiences and from that time. And I apologize for those of you.
No, that was crazy. No, it is not. It doesn't. People who are here today, many of them are very open-minded. They are here to learn new things. If they wanted to ordinarily talk, they wouldn't be here, I'm sure. And that's so interesting, talking about truth. And I come from a culture, Persian culture. Many of us here, we have this. We don't call it lying. We call it taruf. It's like, hey, do you want to stay for 1 hour more? Like it's 12 a.m. You want to leave after dinner, and we're all sleepy, but kind of like out of politeness, hey, stay more. But well, I don't want you to stay, or those kind of things. This is just Persian politeness, but many times we talk about it. We went so far, it's became kind of lying. And I talk about it, and some people are like, "Oh, this is culture." I was like, "Yeah, but if you don't want it, don't say it." People are now open-minded; they don't mind. And I was just wondering, always like, why am I so pissed off with lying? Like, it's not a big. There's no harm in that kind of lying, but I kind of like always encourage people, hey, be rude, because they consider that as being rude. I was like, please be rude to me. Just tell it in my face. Hey, please leave my home. I want to sleep. But then it has a lot of work. But I felt since I start, when I left Iran, I start being less polite and being more direct. I felt so free, and I felt this chakra is activated and working. So I'm not rude to people. I'm just telling the truth, and people start understanding. So I honestly one of the advocate for, hey guys, let's change this culture and tell the truth. I know you want to be polite. I know it come from our ancestors, but let's try to be more truthful, because there is something in truth. And it's interesting because one of our like great kings in history say, God, please bless my country and save it from lies. So I think lies and another word, I don't know it in English. So anyway, if anyone knows it, write it down. It was interesting that he focused on like that it's something that we need to be safe from, which is telling the truth. Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyways, so thank you so much for sharing this. That kind of confirm what we already are working on. That is important. It's some people think maybe it's not a big deal to tell the truth, to be truthful, and to try to promote that, because we need that. We need the people to open up. So thank you so much for sharing this. I will let you, if you want to add anything. And also some people say, hey, you wanted to explain Focus 15. You forgot about 15.
Well, we talked about Focus 15, but I want to say one of the greatest gifts of the Monroe program Gateway is to get to know who you really are. In the beginning, I said I'm a father of 3. I worked for a scientific company and did a lot of research. That's not who I am. When you peel all the layers away, you start to realize who you really are. You're not the thinker of your thoughts even. You're this energetic point of consciousness that is part of God, part of creation. And in learning all these things, you can live more authentically. The truth becomes required. It's to be authentic. You don't sell those little white lies. You don't make those little colloquialisms or cultural deceptions, just to be polite. You become authentic in who you really are. But first, you have to learn who you really are. And that's an onion that's got a lot of layers too. So this process you don't get to know who you are in 1 week or 1 year or a decade. It takes time, and all these things have to be learned. All these experiences have to be had to turn those beliefs into knowings. So I just want to say there's a huge process here it takes us back to source. It takes us back home. And it makes us realize that we are way more than our physical bodies. We are beings of multidimensional beings that are, as I said earlier, we're everywhere and everything and everything at once. It's just amazing. And you can't consciously live that, but you sure can live authentically in this human form to realize that we're all here for a purpose. And to understand that purpose, we have to understand who we really are. That's that.
Yeah, thank you. If there's any focus left that we didn't mention, because some people are asking.
So in the gateway, we finish with focus 21. So we go from 15 to 21, and never mind the numbers in between. Okay. But in 21, we call that the boundary. And that is the boundary between the physical world and the non-physical world. So at this boundary, we enter into the astral plane. Bob Monroe would never say astral plane. He would say locale 2, because he didn't want to put any occult connotations on it. So we move from this world, this physical world, right? The solid tables and the flesh and bone and blood, into this non-physical realm. And we can go there, and it's very accessible to us in the meditation world. It's part of us. It's a place we can go. And when we die, we will go there. We will live another life in that other world. So this Focus 21 place we go to, we learn how to move into that other realm. And in that other realm, we can create, but also we can meet other beings. So when you talk about mediumship, they're, in my mind, going to Focus 21 to meet these other beings. Or we are expanding our frequency, our awareness into that realm so that we can talk to lost past loved ones. I meet my pets there that have passed. You can meet also your guides that may be ancestors. It may be angelic figures, or I don't know what's in your culture. But these are the places where these beings would be accessed. That's where they would reside. They're not in the physical. They're out there. So that's Focus 21. We go into a lot more detail in the program. And also going there and experiencing it with our technology gives you a lot more context, right, Sadie? You can understand it better than just me telling you about it.
Yeah, true. I didn't get a chance since came back to talk about the experience, to be honest, because things that happen in Iran, we had kind of like internet shut down. Many of my followers are from Iran, so that's why I waited. Hopefully together later to talk about it, what I experienced, some of the things that really, I mean, like not as a teaching, I can't teach anything, but I can just say what I experienced. And the reason I wanted to be here was like I thought that the gateway opened and actually many new doors to my consciousness. I didn't think about them. I never was like I was just like kind of like avoiding them. I heard about them, but like different topic. I don't want to open them up because people are gonna start like, "Wow, tell me about that and this." So, yeah, like many things I saw and I heard in Gateway, just open a door that now I need to navigate that. There's no way that I can ignore it because it's open door. That's up to me to if I want to explore more about different things different things that we can experience. But do you have there's many of people here, they want to navigate this consciousness and learn more. What tool do you suggest? Like, what is the best tool or one tool that can help them?
Well, you can go to the Monroe Institute. That's the real experiential deep dive. But if you begin to meditate, and it doesn't matter how you do it, you seek that inner silence. And in that stillness, that silence, that's where all this stuff resides. So there's a long road, transcendental meditation. There's a lot of different ways to meditate, but once you get into that realm, that's when that stuff starts to open up. That's when those experiences start to flow. So we have Monroe has a app called the Expand app, which has our technology on it, and anybody can download that Expand app and listen to our technology and experience it that way and see how it works for you. Is that the question?
Yeah,
Sort of.
I'm gonna actually send that app, guys, to you later, so you can just explore and understand. Can you explain a little bit about the technology? Because some people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they kind of, even if they, some of people here experience like, I can't say by accident, just experience, out of body experience, but um, they do not know about the technology you're using and the sounds and everything. Maybe you can explain a little bit so they understand what you're doing, what to expect in the gateway, maybe, or in the app if they join.
Yeah, yeah. I bet you if we asked anybody on this Zoom call, everybody's probably had some kind of paranormal, beyond normal experience, whether it be an out of body or a lost loved one that recently passed came to them, things like that happen. But our technology works by this is the simple, basic technology, the way it works. We were trying to reach frequencies. If you look at a brain map, there's delta, theta, alpha, beta, and then gamma. But all these frequencies are below our hearing. We cannot hear a 4 hertz signal. We cannot hear even a 30 hertz signal. We are like 200 and beyond. So we got to find a way to hear a hertz signal that can take us into these deep states. So beta is kind of like we are right now. This is where we're talking. This is where we experience our lives in this culture. And maybe around the world, most people are in beta because that's a place of high stress, but it's also high awareness. You're really awake, really doing your job. Then alpha is a slightly meditative state where creativity starts to flow. But then theta is a deeper, you're heading towards sleep. And this is where you dream. This is where a lot of ideas come in. And then delta, of course, is that deep state of connection. There's a delta field that you connect to. So dark technology is binaural beats, which binaural beats have been around they've been around since the 1800s. But we started using it, Bob Monroe started using it in his early research. And he figured out that if you took a binaural beat, the way the binaural beat works is if you put a 100 hertz signal in one ear and a 104 hertz signal in the other ear, your brain hears 4 hertz. It cancels the 100 and hears 4. So there you go. You get a 4 is a high delta frequency. So you can really relax somebody by putting those signals into your ears. So our technology takes this concept and we sprinkle a little bit of beta in and a lot of alpha, theta, and delta in and make a cocktail. It's like a symphony. It's like a musical piece. And there can be up to 16 to 24 different binaural beat signals creating different frequencies that we can now hear. And as we play these frequencies, we change the modulation. There's all kinds of ways to change it. So it's constantly changing, constantly making your brain go, what is that? Your brain does not get bored. So when it hears all these ever-changing signals, it starts to step up its consciousness. It expands its awareness, trying to figure out what's going on. And that is how our technology works. It
So
tricks the brain.
you're kind of cheating.
It is very much cheating. We had 3 monks. It actually made, I think, the New York Times or the Washington Post. The 3 monks came to the Gateway program, and I don't know when, 89, something like that. They came in with suits and ties on. They were very stoic, very aloof from the group. But on the 3rd day, they came down with T-shirts on and they were laughing. And the instructor, the trainer, said, what happened? What's changed? He says, you Americans, you did in 3 days what it takes us 10 years to do. 10 years of
Sure.
meditating. So
I know it's
that's how the technology works.
exactly. So when I was there, I started meditation, I think, a couple of years ago, doing it like every day. And but I experienced that what you're using is, I knew that music had some kind of music that helps and affect the brain to go to that deep level faster, can help. I can actually use that for myself. But then what you're doing, those beats, I felt like, oh, okay, this is kind of like making it faster. Like, it's, as you say, American people want to do everything quickly, learn everything quickly. And I understand, like, honestly, these days, everything is fast, life is going very fast. People working, studying, TV, watching this and doing that, taking care of their kids. So I think in the past, life was very slow. People working in a farm, so slow, and everything was that. So the life changed. So what you did was necessary, because now many people cannot wait for a burger for half an hour, 1 hour. They just want to grab it there because they're so busy. And that's the same thing now. What with you do with meditation, many people want to get deeper. People cannot leave their personal life, their children, their work, and their family, and go to a cave and meditate for 10 hours to get there. So I see why you cheat. I see. So yeah, that's great. Some people have question first before getting to the other question. I want to see if there is anything else you want to add, anything that you think maybe I didn't ask. And you want to add, then we can go to people's questions, and then we can do that meditation all together.
Yeah, let's go to the questions and see where that leads us.
And thank you so much for giving us this time. And that's it. If there's anything you want to say.
It's been a pleasure. I really feel good. I'm kind of shaking right now from doing that meditation, but I really feel good about our meeting together. And I send love to all of you. I send love to all the people on the planet to have peace and self-love and love for the people they are in contact with, and people they don't even know. Just send that love.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
So
Thank you so
much.
much.